In regards to the 10th anniversary of Game of Thrones, a lot of people have been coming back to reminisce over the highs and lows of the show. I'm someone who has notoriously pointed out a plethora of heartbreaking flaws that plague the show, and I wanted to make a ranking video that instead of looking at the best moments, looks at the worst moments. For this list, I'll be diving into the depths of utter stupidity. So sit back and relax as I take you through what I think are the 25 most stupid moments in Game of Thrones. Number 25, the first line of Season 8. Before going into this, I had a handful of honorable moments that could easily contend for the 25th spot, but I think the first line sets a perfect precedence for what you should expect from Season 8. That's terrible writing and showrunners that don't even understand the characters they're writing for anymore. Ah yes, this is a show of comedy now, the Game of Thrones sitcom. A show where the two smartest characters are making cock jokes instead of intellectual conversations that ooze dramatic tension. Also, for this list, I don't want to include a lot of dumb lines, and I think stupid or illogical actions within the story carry much more weight than just a line of dialogue. But this line I think is so stupid that it damages your expectations for the season as a whole. Number 24, the defenseless citizens of Winterfell hiding in a crypt when the enemy can resurrect dead people. I'm putting this kind of low on the list because I'm partially giving the benefit of the doubt that this was just a massive oversight. But I'm sorry, Jon Snow did not mention at any point during the War Council that the Night King can resurrect dead people? Isn't that the whole point of a War Council? To discuss the different powers and advantages that the enemy will use to their benefit?
You, my counsel! Speak sense to this honorable fool!
And it seems like resurrecting dead people is their primary ability, so wouldn't it be smart to discuss that and how they would use it? But nah, let's just move everyone into the crypt because it's a safe place. It's like, hey, let's go hide in a graveyard during a zombie apocalypse. But overall, this was a very easy solve. It required Jon or Bran to use the small shred of brainpower they have left. The Night King is obviously after Bran, so all they really had to do was evacuate the weak people here. Number 23, Daenerys losing even more of her fleet during the attack on Casterly Rock. The reason why this is so stupid is that this happens right after they lose a large portion of their fleet in the prior episode through their surprise attack on the Greyjoys. You would think that this would make Daenerys even more aware and hesitant to use her fleets, but then the next episode, I guess she just forgets about the Iron Fleet and they get counterattacked. Also, by looking at the map, it makes no sense at all to use her fleet to transport the Unsullied to Casterly Rock. They have to travel through so much hostile waters that it practically makes it a guarantee for them to run into the Iron Fleet here. I know it would take a long time for our army to march to Casterly Rock, but at the pace the season was going, they would make it there in half a day. Especially since Dany went from Dragonstone to Highgarden with the Dothraki in half an episode for the Spoils of War. Number 22, Gendry being able to run all the way back to the wall without dying. This is pretty straightforward. Gendry, a man who has grown up in the south and who has never seen snow in his life, is somehow able to run the entire distance they traveled in a day without dying. Like, excuse me? Do you know how hard it is to run in the snow, let alone running for the duration that Gendry managed to do? This is basically just an example of terrible writing where David and Dan try to include Dany to save Jon's expedition. If they were going to go that route, then why not have Bran help with a Raven to monitor their situation? When anything goes wrong, Bran can just immediately inform Daenerys. But Bran doesn't actually use his power, so oh well. Number 21, Varys telling Jon that he's committing treason. If Varys has done any research or has even been paying attention to what Jon has been saying and what his ideals are, he should know that Jon Snow is an honorable man. So why the hell would Jon Snow ever support going against Dany here? At this point in the story, she really hasn't done anything wrong to warn Jon Snow to want to flip on her. Like, hey, can you betray Dany right after she helped you defeat the Night King, please? So Varys is just pulling a massive Hail Mary, and asking Jon to be the king instead of Dany is just idiotic. He's basically signing his own death certificate at that point. A master of whisperers is going around telling everyone he's committing treason. Give me a break, David and Dan. Surely you buffoons can write anything better than that. Oh wait, it only gets worse from here. Number 20. Euron teleporting to the beach to fight Jaime. I know 21 was pretty bad, but this moment is so mind-bogglingly stupid that it's like kicking you on the ground when you already have food poisoning from the bad writing. The Bells was a terrible episode, and this is basically the cherry on top. Euron stumbling around that cliffside corner with his smug face just made me want to turn off the episode. Out of all the places to swim, Euron chose that exact spot at the exact time Jaime was there. What a magical coincidence that led to one of the best scenes from the episode, wow! At the very least they could have given us a half-decent action scene, but nah, it was just an incoherent mess like the rest of the season. Number 19, Littlefinger giving Sansa over to the Boltons. This is the only moment from Season 5 that has made it onto this list. The reason why I place this over everything else so far is because of the significance of how stupid this decision was. I talked about how this ruined Littlefinger's character in my analysis on Season 5 of Game of Thrones, but I'll give a quick rundown on why it's so stupid. Firstly, Sansa just witnessed Littlefinger killing Lysa Arryn, so instead of getting closer to Sansa and bonding with her, Littlefinger throws her over to the Boltons and alienates her. This inevitably leads to Sansa not trusting Littlefinger and her despising him, which compels her to turn on him in Season 7. Also, it doesn't really make sense for Littlefinger to try and ally with the Boltons, given that the North hates them, they don't have the support of the Lannisters anymore, and Stannis is coming to attack them. So, ruining his relationship with Sansa for a potential ally with the Boltons was a terrible idea. Also, by the way, this was a change made by David and Dan, so I'm really not surprised. Number 18, Jon wasting time and not getting on Drogon when they are evacuating beyond the wall. For me, this is a personal pet peeve. This whole moment comes across as Jon Snow getting tunnel vision and wasting a bunch of time, and because of that wasted time, it appears as though Jon stalling is the main reason why the Night King had enough time to kill Viserion. If Jon just got on the dragon, everything would have been fine. But then even after Jon wastes all that time killing whites, he notices that something is wrong and is like, "Guys, we have to get out of here!" We know. We're waiting on you, you idiots. Then Viserion dies, and Jon just stands there looking menacingly at the Night King until he gets tackled into the water. What the hell is going through Jon's mind here? Is it really that hard to get on Drogon? This whole moment just comes across as being very forced so that the Night King could have enough time to kill Viserion, and so that Jon could be left behind to then be saved by Uncle Benjen. This entire execution was just so moronic, and it easily deserves to be number 18 on this list. Number 17, Jon being surrounded by whites and he somehow survives. So this all happens when Jon Snow's dragon crashes and he's forced to pursue the Night King on foot, to which the Night King resurrects all the fallen comrades which then surround Jon Snow. In this instance, Jon Snow should definitely be dead. There is no question about that. He's literally surrounded by dozens of whites. Also, by the way, this is what the whites were like in the beginning of the season. They're literally running at the enemy. And now, they're just slowly walking at Jon. The plot armor here is so painfully obvious, and the filmmakers just hide this by shamelessly cutting away and not even showing him cut down the dozens of whites. David and Dan didn't even have the decency of showing us a badass choreographed fight scene to show off Jon Snow's fighting ability to make this more believable, but oh well, I guess. Number 16, Jaime charging Dany at the end of the Spoils of War and surviving. This is another instance of plot armor, but this time it comes with a larger dose of stupidity. In what world does Jaime think he can actually get close to Daenerys while she's right next to Drogon? On top of it being a horse galloping and making a lot of noise, this is by no means stealthy. It's a straight suicide run. You know it's bad when one of the most brainless characters in the show, Tyrion Lannister, is calling you stupid for charging Dany. It's honestly just ironic at this point that Tyrion is calling Jaime an idiot given all the stupid stuff he's done in Season 7, which we'll get to later in the list. But not only is this attempt at killing Daenerys mindless, he also happens to get saved at the last possible second. Did Dany or Drogon not see Bronn come in and save Jaime? How did Bronn somehow carry Jaime out of the water with all of his armor? There's just so much about this moment that doesn't make sense, and it's just a terrible ending to an otherwise cool battle sequence. Number 15, Jon charging Ramsay's army and surviving. Wow, would you look at that? Another instance of Jon having heavy plot armor. What a surprise! For this instance, I think this is the first main example where Game of Thrones stopped being Game of Thrones. It just became a more generic action fantasy show that threw out any sort of realism and logic and any sort of consequences for character actions. Like, oh, Jon made a massive mistake and played into Ramsay's trap. Well, it doesn't matter, he survives anyways and Sansa saves the day. This is where people stop believing that characters were actually in danger. If you look back at past battles, you fear for the well-being of the main characters because they have to outsmart the enemy to win. But for Battle of the Bastards, David and Dan resort to a deus ex machina that saves the day. I would put this overall moment higher on the list, but it honestly just gets worse from here. Number 14. Jaime and Cersei dying to bricks. I was contemplating putting this higher in the list, but it's whatever, I guess. They were going to die anyways. It's just the way they did it was the most underwhelming way you could kill two primary characters in your story. It honestly just feels like a massive joke. Literally every fan theory is 10 times better than what happened. Jaime betraying and killing Cersei? Nope, they died to bricks. Arya killing Cersei with the mask of Jaime? Nope, they died to bricks. Thank you, David and Dan, for ruining these two characters throughout Season 8 and not even having the decency to write a half-thought-out ending for them. Number 13. Cersei not killing Tyrion when she hates him. For this moment, I'm referring to the ending of The Last of the Starks, where Cersei is about to have her archers kill Tyrion, and then she doesn't all of a sudden. Literally, at the beginning of the season, she sends Bronn to go and kill Tyrion and Jaime. Then, later on, she has the chance to kill Tyrion, and then doesn't. Like, why not? I'm honestly very confused. Throughout the whole story, she's hated no one more than Tyrion, and it's not like she's against killing her own family or anything, given that she killed her Uncle Kevin during the Great Sept Explosion. It's just this whole drama of will she, won't she kill Tyrion is very stupid. It partially makes sense for why she didn't kill Tyrion at the end of Season 7 because she was manipulating him, but here in Season 8, she doesn't have a reason to not kill Tyrion. So yeah, I guess I'm happy Elephant Lady is very consistent here. Number 12. Jaime saying he never cared for the innocents. With one line, David and Dan were somehow able to ruin an entire character.
To be honest, I never really cared much for them.
Innocent or otherwise.
Like, do they even watch their own show or even read the books? I feel like any viewer of Game of Thrones, regardless of writing experience, could have done a better job than writing that line. All you literally need to understand is Jaime Lannister's motivations and what drives his character. To put this simply, David and Dan, Jaime killed the Mad King and sacrificed his honor to save King's Landing and the innocents. So what? He now has never cared about the innocents? Literally the only reason why I could see David and Dan writing this line would be to make Jaime more edgy for whatever reason. This is honestly very hard to try and figure out because it's so idiotic, so I'm just gonna move on. Number 11. The Dothraki charging into the Whites. This may not seem as bad as the catastrophic line that killed Jaime's character, but this whole moment with the Dothraki doing a Leroy Jenkins charge into the Whites is on another level of idiocracy. First of all, in the war room briefing before the battle, Jon says this:
"We can't beat them in a straight fight."
So why the hell do the Dothraki charge here? Did Daenerys just change her mind off screen or something? Did all the Dothraki suddenly get hyped up when Melisandre lit up their swords and they decided to charge in that moment? There's just a lack of answers here. The only thing that makes sense is the whole spectacle over logic conundrum that the later seasons ran into. Just don't worry if this actually makes sense, because, oh, it looks cool. Number 10. Tyrion's plan to extract a white from the north and show Cersei. This plan is an absolutely horrendous idea. First of all, Tyrion should know that Cersei is very selfish and in practically no scenario would she help the good of the realm. Cersei knows that if the undead army exists, they will severely weaken Daenerys' army and then the tide would be more even. So why is Tyrion and everyone else so hell-bent on trying to convince Cersei that the undead exist? I mean, technically she already knows that the undead exist through Qyburn resurrecting the mountain, so why risk so much to potentially and most likely not get her support? The goal of this plan is so devoid of logic, and the way in which they carry out the plan is even more devoid of logic. If you really want to lead an expedition north, then why not take the dragons north, quickly abduct one of the undead, and then return to the dragon? Apparently everyone just assumed that they would somehow capture a white without the entire army noticing. Like, oh, there's no possibility that the Night King will pursue us. In that event, they should have all been killed. But, oh wait, I forgot. Plot armor, yeah. It's also kind of funny that the whites wait for the ice to refreeze even though they can technically swim, but I'm getting off topic here. So again, this is just a stupid suicide mission that accomplishes nothing. Number 9. Arya getting stabbed multiple times, wading through a dirty river, and etc, she somehow survives. So for the prior points of plot armor, the characters generally didn't get injured and were mostly left unscathed. But here, Arya literally gets rolled and is stabbed multiple times. That alone would definitely kill the average character in the earlier seasons of the show. On top of that, she most likely infects her wounds by traveling through a river with a bunch of stab wounds. I think Khal Drogo would like to have a word about his death after that BS. And then, Arya just walks around the city bleeding out and then happens to find the actor she's been stalking, who happens to know how to patch her up. Oh my god, how the hell is Arya still alive? It's hard to really care about these characters anymore in dangerous situations, because if they can survive that, then they can basically survive anything. Which basically happens later on when Arya should have died multiple times during the fall of King's Landing. It just ruins the tension within these action scenes when it becomes very apparent that our heroes are unkillable. Number 8. Everyone in Winterfell being surrounded by whites and surviving. This was really the only thing I was looking forward to in Season 8. The hope of actually having a good action set piece where a lot of characters die, because honestly, what's the point in having plot armor at the end of a story? But I was unfortunately wrong. Literally everyone within Winterfell was somehow unkillable. The audacity that David and Dan had to show Samwell on the ground being hugged by whites and somehow surviving just made me lose it. The entire execution is abysmally devoid of any form of logic. Ah yes, these characters can somehow fight off hundreds of whites, and even when looking up close you can see that the whites are intentionally not killing the characters. If Ser Barristan, one of the best swordsmen in Game of Thrones, couldn't fight off like 8 Sons of the Harpy members, then I highly doubt any of these characters can fight off a horde of whites, especially Sam the Slayer. Actually, let that sink in for a second. Samwell, while lying down, can take on a horde of whites, while Ser Barristan can't even take on more than 8 masters who have probably never touched a sword in their lives. What a devastating joke that is. Somehow, David and Dan made the most intimidating antagonistic force in television seem like an absolute joke within one stupid moment. Congratulations. Number 7. Jon not taking Cersei's deal and ruining everything at the end of Season 7. Jon at this point in the story is basically just hard throwing. In the episode before this, he refused to get on Drogon and should have died when he got tackled into the ice-cold water. And then he continues this hard-throwing attitude by not accepting Cersei's simple request of a truce and to not choose sides of the war.
In return, the king in the north will extend this truce. He will remain in the north where he belongs. He will not take up arms against the Lannisters. He will not choose sides.
Like, okay, that sounds pretty reasonable and is actually a good deal, especially for the north. Cersei will help out in the Great War against the Night King, and then after, Dany and Cersei verse each other, and at this point, one dragon can basically take out the entirety of the Golden Company and the Lannisters, let alone having another dragon, and the full force of the Unsullied, and the Dothraki at the time. But no, Jon already bent the knee and is extremely horny and needs to help in the fight and deny the truce. Everything they did to lead up to that moment was literally for nothing. Viserion? Ah, screw him. Dany has 2 dragons anyways, lol. Although this whole scenario was technically for nothing anyways because Cersei was never going to help them, but still, from Jon's perspective, Cersei was going to help and he threw that away. From a viewer's perspective, it's just extremely frustrating because it makes half the season feel pointless. Number 6. Arya coming out of nowhere to kill the Night King. Ah, how poetic and perfectly logical. A character who has literally nothing to do with the entirety of the White Walker subplot somehow ends up killing the Night King. So poetic. And no, we can't have Jon Snow kill the Night King, his primary antagonist by the way, because that just doesn't seem right.
She seemed like the best candidate provided we weren't thinking about her in that moment.
We hope to kind of avoid the expected, and Jon Snow has always been the hero, the one who's been the savior, but it
Just didn't seem right to us for this moment. We knew it had to be Valyrian steel to the exact spot where the Child of the Forest put the Dragonglass blade.
Also, by the way, let's loosely connect this with a random line Melisandre said to Arya in Season 3 that is so broad that it applies to Arya killing literally anyone.
And in that darkness, eyes staring back at me. Brown eyes, blue eyes, green eyes. Eyes you'll shut forever.
Are you serious, David and Dan? This is why you think Arya should kill the Night King? God, this is so stupid. On top of the whole execution of this scene where Arya just flies in like an eagle screaming is just utterly nonsense. Talk about being an assassin. In this moment, if Arya wasn't decked out with plot armor, she would have been dead within a second, given that the Night King would have just snapped her neck immediately. But hey, don't think about that. This is a great ending. We're just being ungrateful. Number 5. Jon killing Dany and not getting killed for it. This moment is a little more broad and isn't extremely specific, but not only did Jon survive Drogon, the Unsullied for some reason took him prisoner. By the way, this is in an episode where Grey Worm is killing Lannister soldiers for breathing. You're telling me this revenge-fueled man who literally has nothing left but serving his queen, Daenerys, would not kill Jon on the spot for killing his queen? Literally the last thing he cares about? David and Dan don't even bother giving us a scene where Jon gets captured and hopes the audience doesn't question why they wouldn't execute Jon Snow on the spot. For Drogon, I don't know what the hell happened there, and I guess he was just sticking it to Jon by destroying the throne, which in of itself was a really weird scene. Jon killed Drogon's mother, but hey, screw it, I think we'll be even if I destroy this chair. That sounds about right. Also, not only did Jon Snow survive Drogon and Grey Worm, but he also survived the Dothraki. The fact that the Dothraki Blood Riders didn't even want to seek vengeance on Jon is so painfully devoid of logic. In Season 6, Daenerys named all the Dothraki her Blood Riders, and you would think that they would want to avenge their call, but hey, don't think about it, they just disappeared and went back to Essos because they got kinda bored, I guess. Number 4. Sansa not telling Jon that she has the support of the Vale. This may seem a little high considering the catastrophic damage some of the prior points have conflicted from their sheer stupidity, but I think this decision that Sansa made is single-handedly the second worst decision made by a character in the show. So, why the hell did Sansa not tell Jon about the support of the Vale? This seems like massive need-to-know information for a battle.
If you had asked for my advice earlier, I would have told you not to attack Winterfell until we had a larger force. Or is that obvious
When
too?
will we have a larger force? We've pleaded with every house that'll have us. The Blackfish can't help us.
Let me stop you right there, Jon. I feel your anger and frustration, but for me, it's entirely directed towards the mental lunacy that is Sansa. So, you're telling me that you want to wait for a larger force when you literally have a larger force to attack with? Why is she not telling Jon here? It makes perfect sense to tell him in this moment. What, she doesn't trust him for some reason? Her brother and an honorable man? Okay, I guess? Jon is literally on the losing side of the war, and with this information, they could have easily won the battle. Instead though, by Sansa intentionally withholding this information, she creates so much unnecessary conflict and almost indirectly kills Jon. Actually, if the show still had consequences for stupid actions, Jon should have died in the battle. It also amazes me that Jon isn't even angry at Sansa for not telling him about the Vale and how he almost died. If anything, he compliments her for bringing the Vale.
You're the Lady of Winterfell. You deserve it. We're standing here because of you. The battle was lost until the Knights of the Vale rode in. They came because of you.
This whole situation just comes across as very bad writing, so David and Dan could justify the stereotype of the heroes losing a battle, and in the last moment they get saved. Feels good, man. This show prioritizes stereotypes and action set pieces instead of logic. Number 3. Dany snapping and destroying King's Landing. Honestly, to a certain degree, the destruction of King's Landing and the ending of the Mad Queen arc is a cool development, but its entire execution is so painfully stupid. Like, yay, Daenerys won the battle and has seized King's Landing and they have surrendered, yay! Wait, what is that? She's getting triggered all of a sudden and is losing her composure and is now destroying King's Landing? What? For me, what lacks heavily in this moment is an inciting incident. There's nothing that really drives Daenerys to go over the edge here. What would make more sense would be for her to lose Missandei during the assault on King's Landing, which would thus push her over the edge. Ideally though, they shouldn't have killed Sir Barristan in Season 5, and his death could have made her go crazy in season 8, but my point still stands for Missandei. The whole destruction because of this development seems completely unjustified, and the audience feels extremely disconnected with Daenerys during her biggest moment in the story. This is why I think this stupid moment deserves to be within the top 3, because one stupid moment ruins one of the biggest turns in the show. Number 2. Daenerys forgetting about the Golden Company and losing Rhaegal. To me, not only is this extremely stupid, but it's also the most insulting moment in the show's history. You're telling me that Daenerys forgot about the Iron Fleet right after Varys brought it up in their briefing? Are you actually kidding me? This is David and Dan's reasoning for killing Rhaegal? And then even right after killing Rhaegal, the Iron Fleet just becomes cross-eyed and misses Daenerys when she gets even closer to the fleet. Also, given within the context of the show, this is the 3rd time they get surprise attacked by the Iron Fleet. So, I guess Daenerys just doesn't learn from her mistakes at all? How hard would it have been to scout out the waters ahead with the dragons, or even with a few spare ships? Also, if you really need to kill another one of the dragons to make the battle more fair for Cersei, then why not just kill Rhaegal during the Long Night? I think it would have been a much better death scene if Rhaegal fought the dragon at the end of the Long Night saving Jon, instead of Jon just screaming at the dragon. But oh well, Dany just kind of forgot about the Iron Fleet, lol. Number 1. Bran becoming the king. I think without a doubt, this is the number 1 most stupid moment in all of Game of Thrones. The pure inconsistency of writing about how Bran didn't even want to be Lord of anything, and then him all of a sudden wanting to be the Lord of the Seven Kingdoms, is in a different realm of idiocracy.
I can never be Lord of anything.
I don't really want anymore.
Why do you think I came all this way?
That's like Jon Snow constantly saying throughout the season that he doesn't want it, and then in the end he says triumphantly, he wants it. Then we have the whole who has a better story than Bran the Broken conundrum. Why the hell is Tyrion electing a king off of the factor that Bran has an interesting story? Tywin is probably mauling in his grave from the pure mindless stupidity that is streaming from Tyrion's mouth. Those are the qualities that actually make for a good king. Not a comatose vegetable who has literally no sympathy or empathy for anyone he is dealing with. Then we have the issue of Bran having the most interesting story. If Tyrion actually took the time to listen to the story of other characters besides just Bran, then I'd assume he'd actually have other candidates to choose from. It's just ironic that the quote-unquote most interesting story comes from the character who is missing from an entire season of the show. Man, David and Dan, you really outdid yourselves here with this scene. Thank you for ending the show in the absolute worst way possible and sending the fans on a journey of hatred for the final season of the show. So yeah, those are what I think are the 25 most stupid moments within the show. You may disagree with a few of them or how I place them, but that's just personally how I would rank them. If you enjoyed the video, I would be down to do some other ranking style videos for Game of Thrones, and I'm definitely open to suggestions. Have a great day, and let me know what you think is the most stupid moment in Game of Thrones in the comments.